We're here at the US Customs House at the Bowling Green. I originally wanted to do this tour on video like you see here, but after I looked at it, I realized the video, or at least the video I'm capable of, just wouldn't give you a good view of all the beautiful sculpture that decorates this building. So I went back and I took photos of everything, and I'll be using those photos for the rest of our tour. I think you'll still enjoy it though. The Customs House is at the southern tip of Manhattan Island, where we can find some of the most historic and beautiful architecture in the city. One of the most stunning buildings is the US Customs House at the Bowling Green Park. It's so unique we can clearly recognize it on satellite images. It was built in 1907 on a plot of land that's significant, dating back to the 1620s. But the building itself, its design, the architect, the sculpture, and the interior, and we'll look at that in another video, tells a vivid story of early 20th century America. It's a time before the federal income tax was created and the federal government depended on the collection of customs for income. Its design was meant to show the importance of the biggest collector of customs in America, New York. Ready? Let's start with the basics. This island we're standing on, the one we call Manhattan, was originally named Mannahatta, or Island of Hills, by the native Lenape people. We'll learn more about them, the Lenape, in Part 2 when we visit the exhibit inside. When the Dutch West India Company acquired the land from the Lenape in 1625, they built a fort. They called it Fort Amsterdam, on this spot. Later, the English built their own fort after they took the island from the Dutch in 1664 and renamed it New York. That fort is best known for its name during the Revolutionary War, Fort George. By the 20th century, America was becoming a trading and financial superpower, specifically New York. The federal government depended on the collection of customs, or taxes on goods moving in and out of commercial ports, for income. New York was one of the busiest ports in the nation, collecting huge sums of customs every year. In 1901, the city commissioned a new building to be used for customs transactions, a United States Customs House, and hired architect Cass Gilbert to design it. Now you might recognize the Woolworth building. It's a short distance north along Broadway. It was also designed by Cass Gilbert. It was completed in 1913, and it was the tallest building in the world until 1929. The Customs House project came before the Woolworth building and was completed in 1907. This was all before the passage of the 16th Amendment in 1913, which created the federal income tax. By the way, did you know that we've only had a federal income tax for just over 100 years? What did we do before that? The federal government collected taxes on trade, and this Customs House represents a time when that was key to the federal government's ability to operate. Today, it's both a national and a New York City landmark. The Customs House is 7 stories tall, and we can see this grand staircase leading to the main floor. It's built in the Beaux-Arts style, but the New York City Landmark Commission report, issued in 1965, the year it was declared a New York City landmark, calls it eclectic French Renaissance. The report remarks that art and industry joined to produce one of the splendid buildings of its period, a truly monumental structure. On each side of the entrance are double Corinthian columns, with 2 single columns to the left and right, and another set of double columns at each end. The columns provide balance and symmetry, and they accentuate the 3 most significant floors. At the very top, centered over the entrance, is a cartouche representing America. At the 5th floor level is an entablature, or a ledge, where 12 11-foot tall statues stand, representing the history of seafaring trade from the ancient to the modern era, from left to right. In front are 4 heroic statues, and they're designed by sculptor Daniel Chester French, and they represent, from left to right, Asia, America, Britain and Europe, and Africa. So starting at the top of the building with the cartouche, let's take a closer look. If we look straight up from the entrance, we can see a cartouche that represents the United States of America. It was designed by the German sculptor Karl Bitter. In the middle are the stars and stripes of the flag, and you can see an eagle is sitting on top of that, and on each side is a woman representing prosperity and strength. The woman on the left has a sword, and the woman on the right, what she's carrying there is a bunch of reeds that are tied together. The reeds tied together as one represent all of the states together and strength. In other words, one reed alone can easily be broken, but a group of them tied together are almost impossible to break. And we see that symbol in lots of American symbolism, including the Great Seal of the United States of America. Now, how about a closer look? Look at this. Isn't this incredible? The two women are sitting on the railing, their feet are dangling over the edge, and they are gazing out over the top of the city. Behind them, you can see the pink mansard roof and green decorative windows. And can you make out the tridents across the top of the roof? Amazing detail here. The building is covered with details like these tridents, all representing maritime history and mythology. For instance, when we see the trident, it reminds us of the Roman god of the sea, Neptune, or in Greek, Poseidon. In the background of the picture, you can see New Jersey and New York Harbor, and beneath the dangling feet are the tops of some of the statues we're going to look at on the next level down. That's the 5th floor. This is where we find those 12 11-foot tall statues representing the history of seafaring trade. Remember, at the time this was built, the Port of New York was an entry for goods carried by ship, continuing the tradition of trade across the world's oceans. So many kinds of symbols of commerce and traveling by ship are found here on the building. The statues at the leftmost side represent ancient trade like Greece, Rome, and Phoenicia, and continue across, spanning the eras of Spain and Holland, and finishing on the far right with Britain and France. Now look at this picture taken at eye level across the ledge. This is the section on the left side, so we're looking from the left to the right from about halfway across. I think the statue closest to us is Spain from the details, but I'm not completely sure. But besides that, just look and enjoy the detail in these statues. Here's a view looking up at those same statues. The last picture was taken just outside of those windows at the very top, those centermost windows. So someone must have opened the window, walked out onto the ledge, and taken that picture for us. Over those windows and the windows on either side, you can see the heads of lions. Beneath that row of statues, we see the name of the building, US Customs House, and a level that's decorated with medallions and garlands all around. Just beneath the name are the 4 Corinthian columns that frame the entrance, and at the top of each column we see a face. Well, it's Mercury, or Hermes in Greek, the god of commerce. So far we've seen tridents representing Neptune, and now the head of Mercury. So we have oceans and commerce. There are 44 of these columns surrounding the customs house, and each one has the face of Mercury at the top. And also, look at this. It's hard to find and to see, but also at the top of each column is a winged wheel that represents industry. And we're going to see another bigger version of that somewhere else on the building later. Moving down a bit more is the top of the entry arch, with Lady Liberty greeting us as we enter. On either side of her are symbols of New York. The main floor is the most elaborately decorated. Each window has a triangular pediment above it, with 2 giant fish, one on each side, peeking out. Can you see them? Beneath each triangle, on each side, as if it's holding up the triangle, is a caduceus. Now, we think of the caduceus as a symbol of medicine today, but it also is the staff that Mercury carried, so it also means commerce. Beneath the middle of the triangle is a face, a head, and these are all different around the building and represent the various races of the world. So for instance, Caucasian, Hindu, Latin, Celt, Mongol, Italian, African, and there's an Eskimo also. Look at the detail in these sculptures, and they continue all around the entire building. Here's a view of the Customs House as if we were walking up from Stone Street, up from Broad Street. It's a little crowded right here with glass office buildings on both sides of us, but you can see the beautiful pink and green roof. Those decorative urns are on the same level as the 12 statues we looked at on the front, and we can see more of those windows with carved faces on the main floor. Here's a close-up view of the roof. The windows are decorated like the windows of a 17th century Dutch flagship. Now look at this. Over the main windows is a similar shape, but this time it's a seashell. So now we're going to head back to the main entrance to take a close look at the 4 statues known as the continents. As impressive as the Custom House is, the first thing everyone sees are the 4 statues designed by the sculptor Daniel Chester French and carved by the Piccirilli brothers. If you've seen the Washington Square Arch, they carved that statue as well. They're known as the 4 continents and are, from left to right, Asia, America, Europe, and Africa, and each is represented as a woman. So let's look at Asia first. She is serene and meditating, and on her lap is a Buddha. You can't see it from this angle, but her feet are resting on a throne that is supported by human skulls. To our left is a beautifully sculpted Asian tiger. I like to stop sometimes when I'm on my way to the subway just to look at how lifelike it is. It's difficult to see, but right near the end of the tiger's nose is a lotus flower. Over that same shoulder, you can see a cross showing the arrival of Christianity in Asia. A view from the other side shows the starving people of the Asian continent. Now remember, this is Asia more than 100 years ago, not the Asia we think of today. The next statue is America. She's young and assertive, and she's looking straight ahead right at us. In her hand is the torch of liberty, and on her lap are stalks of corn, showing the nation's farming prosperity. She holds her cape across the shoulders of a man who is labor. She's sitting on an Aztec frieze, and we can see the head of the Aztec serpent god Quetzalcoatl, representing our continent's Central American past civilizations. On the east side of the statue is a powerful native tribal leader gazing over her shoulder, an eagle, and a cactus from the southwest. The Aztec frieze is easier to see from this side too. Let's move to the other side where we have a better view of the man. He represents labor, industry, and progress, and he turns a winged wheel. Well, there it is again, the second time we've seen this winged wheel. Remember, it's at the top of those columns. And there's something really neat on the back of the statue. We have to climb up behind it and onto the platform to see. It's a Native American bird totem. Can you see it up at the top? And a Native American vessel at the bottom. Next, on the other side of the staircase is Europe. Europe is powerful and mature. She wears an armor breastplate, and you can't see it really in the picture, but on the tapestry over her legs are the coats of arms of the royal families of Europe and Britain. Over her right shoulder is the eagle standard of the old Roman Empire, and to the side of that, the prows of 3 ships. Under her left arm is the Magna Carta. It's opened and it rests on a globe representing the world, demonstrating Europe's vast travels and global influence. On the right side of the statue, we can see the ship prow of Britain, or I should say to the woman's right side on the statue, we can see the ship prow of Britain represented by a lion's head. She rests one hand there. The other 2 heads are an eagle and a bear, representing other seafaring civilizations from European history. From here we can see that she's sitting on a frieze from the Parthenon of Athens. All of European civilization, it suggests, is based on the philosophies that grew out of the philosophers of Athens. The left side of the statue, or our right side of the statue, shows an old philosopher holding a globe representing the ancient world. And we see more of the frieze from the Parthenon, the globe, and the Magna Carta. The final and most relaxed, and I think probably the most beautiful in its simplicity, is Africa. She's sleeping peacefully with one arm on the head of the Sphinx and the other on the head of a lion. Africa is shown as a peaceful, sleeping continent, not yet realizing its modern power. Here's a better view of the Sphinx from the east side of the statue, along with a Bedouin who represents the nomadic desert tribes. On the other side, or the west side, is the contented lion. If you look up, you can see the serene and contented and happy look on his face, and the incredible detail in his paws, the fur and the claws, everything so beautifully sculpted there. If you have a chance to visit the Customs House, you'll find the Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian inside. In part 2 of this video series, I'll show you some of that exhibit, and we'll look at the stunning main floor rotunda. It has giant murals illustrating the coming and going of ships and goods in the port. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel and check out some of my other videos about the great history of New York City. Also, if you haven't noticed, I make videos as an 18th century New York City merchant lady, and you might find those interesting as well. As Mrs. Q, I talk all about what life was like in New York during the Revolutionary War. And please consider supporting my work. There are links in the comments here. You can make a one-time donation on PayPal or Venmo, or become a patron. On Patreon, you can not only see my videos, but I also almost every day post a story about New York City history with either an original print or document or something to illustrate what I'm talking about. I also often share there some of the documents I use for this research. So I'll see you again soon for part 2 of the United States Customs House at the Bowling Green.